This is the 2025 Kia Tasman, the first dual cab ute to come from the brand. Today we're going to be having a comprehensive look around it, from the engine through the interior right to the tub.
And we're also going to break down the numbers on this new Tasman to see how it stacks up on paper, especially against key competitors like the Ford Ranger and Toyota HiLux. Now, in terms of pricing, we don't know exactly where this Tasman is going to land just yet in the Australian market, but we can get a little bit of information out of Kia because they told us that they have benchmarked this vehicle against the most popular options in the segment, including the likes of the Ford Ranger, which is at the moment in Australia the most popular four-wheel drive ute. And of course, the Toyota HiLux is pretty close in there as well. So we're expecting to see the Tasman priced maybe a little bit below where the Ranger is at the moment. And for reference, a Ford Ranger Wild Track, which is a fairly top spec model in that range, is around $75,000 plus on-road costs, while an XLT, which is a really good mid-spec option, is around $63,000 plus on-road costs. So maybe we can see the Tasman landing around $60,000 to $70,000, somewhere around that ballpark.
Now, the first thing to touch on is, of course, the design. Kia says that it wanted to shun the traditional styling of utes, which it says has been stagnant for the past few decades. Now, if you look at the overall shape, it's more like a Jeep Gladiator than something like a HiLux, but it has a distinctive hammerhead shark front end and these unusual wheel spats. We're really interested to know what you think. Let us know in the comments section below or on our article on Drive.com.au.
The Tasman's going to be available with either steel or alloy wheels, and you're going to have a choice of either 17-inch or 18-inch wheel diameter, and that is good news for those people who want to go off-road. We're not going to be worried about 19s and 20s in this case. Now, in terms of tyre diameter overall, the rolling circumference, you're looking at a 30.5-inch tyre, which is about average, not particularly huge in terms of ground clearance and that sort of thing. For reference, a Ford Ranger Raptor has around a 33-inch tyre, and some others in the segment that are tended to go off-road a bit more have around a 32-inch tyre. So 30.5, it's about regular, but of course you can increase that with aftermarket tyres. Now, the Tasman is coming to Australia with either a tub on the back or a cab chassis, so you can fit your own tray or whatever you like on the back there. But we're not getting the single cab in Australia, which is available in other markets, and an extra cab for the moment is ruled out, so it's dual cab only.
Now, under the bonnet is a 2.2 litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder. There is a 2.5 litre turbo petrol engine being offered for overseas markets that was being considered for Australia until the Australian government introduced the NVES, the new vehicle efficiency standards. Now, this 2.2 litre diesel produces 154 kilowatts and 441 newton meters of torque. Essentially the same engine you'll find in the Kia Sorento, but with 6 kilowatts more and 1 newton meter more. That may not sound like much, but Kia says it didn't want to sacrifice the reliability of the engine just to offer better numbers on a page. The engine is matched to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and there's going to be a choice of rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive.
So how does this engine compare with others in the segment? These sorts of numbers aren't particularly overwhelming, to be honest with you. You've got something like a Ford Ranger or a Toyota HiLux. Those vehicles with a 4-cylinder diesel, they have 500 newton meters and around 150 kilowatts. So this 2.2 litre engine is a little bit behind the pace in that regard. And of course, don't forget, you can step up to a V6 in something like a Ford Ranger or a Volkswagen Amarok. You've got over 180 kilowatts in that regard and 600 newton meters. So that will certainly leave this Tasman in the dust. Now, what you might not realize is that this 2.2 litre turbo diesel engine has been around for a little while and has been used in a lot of different Kia and Hyundai vehicles. And for what it's worth, it does have a decent reputation for reliability. It did get updated recently, however. It went from having an iron block to an alloy block. It swapped a timing chain for a timing belt, and it got an updated fuel system. And of course, this is the first time it's being used in a 4-wheel drive ute with things like big towing capacities and big payloads. So it's definitely a more heavy duty application of this engine. So we'll see how it goes over the long term. So in terms of the four-wheel drive system, the Tasman has a fairly regular part-time four-wheel drive setup. So you've got high-range two-wheel drive, high-range four-wheel drive, and then low-range four-wheel drive. There is also an auto function there, which you can put it on, which will automatically detect a bit of wheel slip and send a bit of drive to the front, which is a handy thing to have. But it's worth noting that this is a bit different to what you get in something like a Ford Ranger or a Volkswagen Amarok that has a permanent or selectable full-time four-wheel drive system, which is based upon clutches in the center there. Kia claims that the Tasman in its top spec X Pro setup has 252 mils of ground clearance, which is 28 mils higher than other specifications. Now, this number can be a little bit wishy-washy between different makes and models and isn't always really indicative of how much clearance it actually has in the real world, but at least we know that it's going to be around the right area. Now, it is good to see that the Tasman has a locking rear differential, which is really good for off-road driving, and it's also got an 800mm wading depth, which is actually right towards the higher end of this segment and competitive with something like a Ford Ranger, which is good to see. Now, if you're finding this video useful or maybe just a bit entertaining, or you know someone who's interested in this Tasman, don't forget to share this video with your family and friends. And if you're in the market for a four-wheel drive ute at the moment, the Tasman's not really on sale just yet, but we've got plenty of utes for sale at Drive Marketplace.
Now inside, it's quite a stylish place to be, more akin to, say, a high-end SUV than a light commercial vehicle. Now let's start off with this double wide screen. First, you've got a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, which stretches across to another 12.3-inch infotainment screen. Sandwiched in between is another 5-inch screen, which looks after the climate control. You've also got the center console, which can turn into a table. You've got a sunroof on the high-end models. You've also got 5 different options for the interior trim, including 2-tone trim options for the high-end models.
Now, as you would expect, the Kia Tasman in high spec levels does come with a fair amount of gear on the inside. You get things like heated and ventilated seats, you get a heated steering wheel, and even twin wireless charging pads for your smartphones, and of course, plenty of USB power outlets for all of your gear and gadgets. Now, you'll also notice here that the gear shifter isn't in the usual spot you would find it there around the center console. It's similar to what you see actually in Kia and Hyundai electric cars. The transmission selector now has moved to a stalk now off the steering column. It's a little bit different than what you would expect, but hey, I don't mind it because it actually does free up space there in that center console area for things like cup holders, storage, power outlets, and all of that sort of thing. But I've got to say, one of the most interesting things about this Tasman is actually the second row and the amount of space you get in there because, well, a lot of people are buying these four-wheel drive utes as family cars these days. And I don't know if you've spent any time in the back of a Toyota HiLux, for example, but it can be a little bit cramped and a bit uncomfortable, especially if you've got things like adults in the back, baby seats, groceries, whatever it might be. But because this Tasman is actually quite a large vehicle on the outside, it does get a fair amount of space in the second row. And Kia says that there's up to 940 mils of legroom in that second row, which is quite good. It certainly looks really spacious from the pictures and videos we've seen so far. But also that backrest in the back actually tilts between 22 and 30 degrees. So you can tilt that back a little bit more, get a bit more comfort in the back there. And this could really set the Tasman apart from others in the segment, especially if you're looking for this to be a bit of a dual purpose car for work, but also for family usage. Now, Kia has clearly been doing its homework in terms of setting up the interior of this Tasman. And one thing I do really like is the under-seat storage in the second row. This is something that some of the better utes in this segment have. I'm thinking of something like an Isuzu D-Max and a Ford Ranger. They do vary a little bit, but some of the worst utes in the segment have nothing at all here. So it's nice to see 33 litres of storage in these under-seat areas. They're nicely laid out. It almost looks like wet storage actually. So that could be really handy for things like first aid kits or recovery kits or whatever it might be when you're out in the bush. Now, in terms of tub dimensions overall, you can see the numbers on the screen at the moment, but for reference, this is around about the same as what you get in most other dual cab four-wheel drive utes in the segment. Now, Kia says that you can fit a pallet in between the wheel arches in the back of this Tasman. Now, it's a good reference point to have, but of course, if you're going to be fitting pallets in the back of your ute, you're going to have a tray fitted, and you can get this Tasman as a cab chassis to get that tray installed as well, don't forget. And of course, a tub liner so you can fill that thing up full of firewood and not scratch the paint. And don't forget as well, there's a really handy little storage feature on the side of the Tasman built into that wheel arch, which is quite a unique thing which I haven't really seen before, except for maybe a Ram. Now, to round out the business end of this Tasman, there is a soft opening tailgate and electric tonneau cover. That would likely be only for top spec models, of course, and there's also lighting and tie down points in the back. But most importantly, let's talk about payload. Now, what we know at the moment is that Kia claims up to 1,017 kilos of payload for the four-wheel drive model and almost 1,200 kilos for two-wheel drive models. But don't forget, this will be dependent on the specification of the vehicle and whether you've got a tub or a cab chassis fitted and what kind of options and accessories you have as well. So we'll know a little bit more about payload when more details come out in the future.
And finally, Kia has added some thoughtful features like a 240 volt plug in the back of the tub and these side steps to allow for easier access. Nothing's been confirmed at this stage, but we're expecting the Kia Tasman to launch in Australia in mid-2025 with local pricing and specifications to be announced closer to that launch. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment below. And of course, if you're in the market for a dual cab ute, be sure to head to Drive Marketplace on our website.
And if you're hungry for more four-wheel drive ute content, check out this review above me here. It's one of my personal favorites. It's the Ford Ranger XLT with the V6, and it's a great video review. Check it out.